Nice. All right, bud. Well, that's exciting stuff. Like I said, we'll get to the PGA Championship recap at the end of the podcast. Let's get into this week at the Wyndham. We're going to give you the course breakdown, key stats. Then we're going to get into our DFS picks. And then we're going to talk about some betting. I've got some juicy numbers like I said, this really gets me giggly with these long shot potential winners here at the Wyndham. Let's get to it. Tell us about the golf course, the Sedgefield Country Club.
Yes, the Wyndham Championship in Greensboro, North Carolina, Sedgefield Country Club. Great course. It is a par 70 playing just over 7,100 yards. It's actually one of the shorter par 70s that we see all year. I think it's probably comparable to like the Sony Open course there. It's a classic Donald Ross design. You're going to get those kind of slopey, small greens where there's a lot of runoffs, but a lot of undulation. It's Bermuda grass, tee to green. This typically ranks as one of the easier courses on tour. I mean, we see very low scoring here. You got tree line fairways that are relatively tight, but they're not all that difficult to hit. I don't think driving accuracy is necessarily going to be that key. You do want to try to keep it in the fairway, but the rough isn't going to be all that, heavy. So I do want guys that can hit it in the fairway. I'm just not saying that, a bomber still can't, win around this course. But it's definitely around these greens. I mean, you've got to hit them in the right spots, and you got to be good. If you do miss them, you got to be good at scrambling. So, I mean, that's what you typically see with Donald Ross designs and Donald Ross greens. That is really what he, like, when he sets up a course, it's like he starts with the greens and goes backwards. I mean, it's all about that, all about the approach play and the ball striking. I think we're going to play this course relatively soft this week. We're getting storms almost every single day, like we do in the South here. It's going to soften up this course a lot, but they'll run pretty quick. I mean, the greens are going to run true and quick, but I still think they're going to set up for a ton of scoring. Both of these par fives are reachable, so all the folks out here should be able to score on those. As far as stats for me, I'm definitely looking at form and history here, looking at greens and regulation and ball striking. I mentioned scrambling is something that I do like. And I like opportunities gained, which is a stat on Fantasy National, just, that gives you sort of an indication of where somebody is as far as giving themselves scoring opportunities. So I like that as well. Looking at past champions, we've got JT Poston last year at 21 under, Brant Snedeker in 2018, also 21 under, Henrik Stenson at 22 under, Siwoo Kim 21 under. You just see it right down the line. The last four winners, right? 21, 22 under, and then you had Davis Love at in 2015 at 17 under. So
Davis Love,
yeah, DL3. He came out of nowhere and won that year, didn't he? It like extended his tour career just like an extra couple of years, just because he won. I mean, because he was close to being on the senior tour right then. Anyway, so there you go. Quick rundown. We got T65 and ties, by the way, this week. So not like last week where the PGA said we had T70. We got T65 as we will at all tour events. So there you go. That is the rundown for Sedgefield.
very nice, very nice. Do you need to pull money out of TJ and pay for a power bill? Because you look like you're in the dark. You look like you're actually in a dark wine cellar, like underground.
For some reason, like the light just like lowered. So let me while you're giving your
okay.
We'll lighten it up a little bit here.
Yeah, I definitely was not paying much attention during Pat's course preview there.
You were looking at the chat, weren't you?
No, I was not actually. Oh, there, that's much better. I can see your lovely face now. No, I was not looking at chat. I don't know. I do think accuracy matters. A little, maybe it sounds like a little more than you do, but it's not a long course. It's it's tree line, tight-ish. I think fairways are important because hitting the right tiers on these undulating Donald Ross greens is going to be pretty good. I mean, ultimately, you got to score here. You cannot Bill Haas your way around this damn golf course. Like, you got to – par is not your friend. Birdie is your friend. Birdies and eagles galore. You mentioned the scoring there. Basically in the 20s, is in the 20s the last 4 years other than the DL3 and 5 years ago. And I don't know what – who was he even playing against back then? Like, did anybody else show up that week? He won at 17 under, and it was DL3 in 2015. Like, who was he playing? Was Club Pro guy in the field, or maybe I don't know, somebody terrible back, like Lynn Matisse, was he in the field?
I don't know if Lynn Matisse was in there, but Craig
um,
Perks, was he there?
who
I see.
who was the guy that wore the who's the guy that always wore like the wristband? Scott Verplank. It sounds like a Scott Verplank, Jeff
Uh,
Maggart. He
I
won
thought you were
that.
like Jesper Parnevik, maybe. Was Jesper in
Ooh,
this
yeah, Jesper.
one?
um, yeah, tons of birdies and eagles. That's what you got to do. So it's accuracy. It's very solid iron play. I think that's number one if you want to look at stats. And it's putting well on these champion Bermuda grass greens. These are true Bermuda down here in the South, Greensboro, North Carolina.
Yeah.
I like form a lot as well. There's some events where, where par is your friend. I think you can come in not quite as hot and get around and be okay. But I think in events like this where it's a shootout, you got to be confident. You got to be firing away. You got to feel like you can attack any pin location. So I do want in-form players, guys that are going to score, guys that are going to go low. And as I mentioned, long shots have done well here. 3 out of the last 5 winners have been triple-digit winners. Davis Love III was 500 to 1. If I hit a guy at 500, I want to go ahead and let you know. If I ever hit a guy at 500 to 1, like publicly, I don't even care if I put $1 on him. If I publicly tout a human man at 500 to 1 and hit it, it's going on my grave, on my gravestone. Like it's going, it will be everywhere. It will be in our Twitter bio. It will be everywhere. 500 to 1. Let's see. Sneds and Poston, I think, or maybe Siwoo and Poston were both the other triple digit. Poston was
I would
100
imagine.
to 1.
I don't think Steads or Stinson were.
No, he wasn't. No, I know
6'4".
Stinson wasn't. You're right. It was Siwoo and Poston. Poston was 100 to 1. He was coming in good form. So it can, anybody could come up and win this thing this week. And we'll talk about that a little bit.
I think Stinson's sort of an example of what you'll see. Everybody always talks about him hitting a 3-wood off the tee a lot and things like that, and sort of dialing it back off the tee. It's not like Stinson's a short guy. As far as how he hits the ball, he just never hits his driver, so we don't really know. But I think you're going to see that a lot with guys like your longer guys. I mean, Koepka's in the field right now. I think they'll be dialing it back off the tee a little bit, and so I say this to say, like, I wouldn't just throw out the bombers, because even though I do agree that you do have to be fairly accurate, but just because you may see a bomber out here on this course and you're looking at the stats, but they're terrible as far as driving accuracy, well, that may not, correlate, because they may be hitting an iron off the tee or a 3-wood off the tee, and it may just be a little bit different. So I don't know, than what they're normally doing, bombing it with their driver off the tee. So
yeah. Length always an advantage, and definitely course history here. This does seem like a spot where, if you're comfortable in the South, you're comfortable on Donald Ross, you're comfortable on Bermuda, you kind of understand the pin locations here, the levels on these greens, the undulation on these greens, the angles that you need from the fairway to attack them. I do think that it carries a little more weight this week than a couple other of these events we've had here in the last few weeks. So. As always, our stats brought to you by Fantasy National. Our friends at fantasynational.com/TJ. If you use that URL, fantasynational.com/TJ, will hook you up with 20% off any membership, weekly, monthly, or annually. You can try it for a week. If you love it, you can then switch it to a month or an annual subscription, and you still get the 20% off because the Tour Junkies referred you. That's just where we get everything. So all the stats we mentioned, it's where we find our course history data, our recent form data. We look at ownership projections for DFS. There's a ton of content now with the custom models. The new stuff that they built over there that Moose and the gang have built at Fantasy National is incredible. We've been using them for 3 years. It is our only source for stats. It's a fantastic website, and they've been longtime supporters of the Tour Junkies and our listeners. So please give them a look if you have not already. Go to fantasynational.com/TJ, or just when you sign up, you can just put in promo code Tour Junkies or whatever.